everyone. Hi, my name is Jana and I am a head of community engagement for Pride in Surrey, and I am joined by Maz, who is our community engagement representative. Hello, Maz, how are you?
Hello, Jana, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thank you for joining me to talk to fantastic Peta, who's going to join us and talk about fostering an adoption experience that she's been through. Obviously, we're now in March, and first week of March is marked as an LGBTQ plus fostering and adoption week. This is a campaign that is run by the UK's leading charity called New Family Social. We have been working very closely with Surrey County Council, who are our sponsor, and sort of we teamed up and just want to bring you some information and insights to world of fostering. So I'm really, really excited because the fantastic team at Surrey County Council have given us a contact, which is Peta, and she has got an incredible experience, not only with fostering but adoption. And we're going to bring her on and let her talk to us and just explain what she has been through. There we go. Hello, Peta.
Hiya. Good to see you.
Hi, Peta. Nice to meet you. We're really excited to talk to you today because it sounds like you've got some fantastic experience. And obviously, we're trying to highlight the fact that you can be LGBT person and you can foster and adopt, because a lot of people are still not aware. So you're going to tell us a little bit about that. But first of all, I think if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I live in Guildford. I've got 3 birth children who I had through with my gay partner at the time. So my oldest one is 33. I'm feeling very old at the moment. I've actually got grandchildren now as well, which is even more scary. And then started to adopt fostering 10 years ago, and ended up, I'm still fostering and have done all the way through, but I've also adopted a little one 8 years ago.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like your house is full of children. I can't really relate to that. I don't have any children. I don't have any pets. But I'm just so, I take my hat off to people that, you know, decide to do fostering and adopting, but also, especially if they've got their birth children as well. And that's something maybe we can talk about later. It's like, maybe is it an advantage if you already have birth children to then go into adoption, or I don't know. I wouldn't know. I haven't got the experience, but yeah, it'll be interesting to find out. I think Maz has got some questions for you.
Yes, I have. Peta, what prompted you to, after having birth children, to go down the fostering route and then eventually adopt? Because it's such a wonderful but hard thing to do, to bring up somebody else's child who may or may not still have input in that child's life.
Well, for me, I've always adored children. I did nursery nursing back when I was, 18 or whatever, did the training and everything, and then got absconded and headed off to Australia for a year's working holiday with some girlfriends. So when I came back, I'd done nannying jobs and things like that in the meantime, but I found them a bit thankless. My mum had set up a business, a hotel, and I sort of got pulled into it. I then very soon met my partner a year or two afterwards, going up to Gaze the Word bookstore. I'm one of the people who met their partner in Gaze the Word on a Wednesday discussion night. I know, 6 weeks in. And we had a wonderful life together. And I was the one who sort of instigated having children. And it was about 8 years into our relationship. I'd always wanted kids, but I thought, oh my God, I'm gay. So after the whole thing of coming out as gay and all that sort of stuff, I thought, well, that's me done. I won't be able to have children. I won't be able to, do that. That was back in the, the times of Clause 28 and everything. And went on that march. But so then it transpired that we felt that we could. And so that's what made me go down that route. And we did with a family friend. There's obviously lots of history in that, and the family friend is still very much on board. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. He's like an uncle, but they see him on and off, and they've got loads of siblings, half siblings, which of course they get on really well with as well. So I've forgotten the question. That was the bit about that. And then fostering, I've always wanted to do fostering, and as my kids were growing up, it took a lot of time. And my son came out of school because he was dyslexic, and then I tried to homeschool him, and in the end he got on a tennis program. Anyway, to cut a long story short, it took up a lot of time, and I knew I couldn't do fostering then, because I'd be traveling around all the tournaments with them, and that would have been, wouldn't work. Can't do that to a kid. So then I finally got the time, and I had my kids with me, so it was useful having your own birth children, but they were a lot older, obviously. I think my son was probably 15, 16, and then so they helped out a lot and gave me a lot of support. So I was very fortunate with that. So
what was the age? Sorry, Peta, what was the age gap in your birth children?
Well, if I'd been going 10 years, my daughter had just come back from traveling, so she'd have been 21, 22. And then the other one, my children, sorry, they're 21, 22.
Your children then?
Yeah, Theo's going to be, he's going to be shockingly 27 this year. So there was 2 years and then 3.5 years.
Oh, okay.
So they were all quite young. But when I started fostering, yes, they were very hands-on and actually enjoyed it, I think. My eldest one is not that the middle one wasn't, but she was at university. The eldest one, very hands-on, and I wouldn't have adopted. It would have been such a hard decision at my time in life, and my age. I felt unfair. Had she not had such a strong relationship with her, the littlest one, so we adopted as a family, and specifically myself and my eldest daughter. So we co-parent as such. Although I'm on the, certificate of adoption because I'm the foster carer, so it had to be me. So
did you go through council when you first started inquiring about fostering? Did you go through your local council? Yeah. And how did you find that? Obviously, you saying about the fact that you're LGBT, and it's fantastic that back in those days, you had your free birth children, and you didn't think it was possible, and of course it is. And now what we're trying to highlight, that it is possible. You can be LGBT and you can adopt and you can foster. What was your experience with that? How did you approach it? Were you worried, or did you just go to the council and they give you all the necessary information?
Yeah, to be honest, it was very easy. They were very supportive straight away. I mean, we'd always been out. The kids had always been out at school. I always made it a point of going into school to help in school. And when they asked you, and she's got 2 mummies, and we were always and so all her friends, they got a bit of stick later on, but to be honest, it was very easy. So when I started applying to adopt, I was feeling very positive, not adopt, foster, and I got nothing but positive, but I didn't get any negative. Maybe I'm very fortunate, I don't know, but I got nothing negative back. I had so assessment lady came through, remember her, Alison, and you go through quite a few meetings, going back through once they assessed you. I went on the trainings that they did in those days, and they probably still do now, and all very positive. Nothing. I got a wonderful social worker, my supervising social worker, who I still have, so I'm really lucky. Very, very supportive. Yeah, all the way.
Is this from Surrey County Council?
Yeah, from Surrey County Council.
Yeah, we hear all the good things about Surrey County Council. There was another same-sex couple that I've spoken to recently, and their experience with Surrey County Council has been amazing. Now, I don't know which year did you start inquiring about fostering, but from my own research, it's as early as 2005 when you were allowed to foster without having to be married and being LGBT, or even single parent, which I think it's amazing. 2005. I didn't think it was as early as that, but yeah, that really makes me happy.
I think I contacted them in 2008, but then didn't do anything because of circumstances at my end. And so probably 2009 I followed it up, and then 2010 I became, obviously a foster carer, approved foster carer.
Fantastic. Yeah. Sorry, Maz, did you have another question?
Yeah, I'm just being a lesbian mum myself. I have one birth daughter, one birth granddaughter. My partner has 4 birth children and bringing up the oldest granddaughter. Have your children encountered any negativity around being fostered or having a gay mum?
Not at all yet. I mean, obviously with the whole COVID thing, but you see, the thing is different now is that there's just one of me as such. So people just presume, or kids, whereas I could make in the early days, it was my partner and myself that would be with the kids, would be doing school things together, would be doing all those things together. So questions naturally come up. So you can't just march in and go, I'm a gay mum. When I want to wait for a question to come up and then I answer it. So but most of my daughter's questions that come up are about probably being adopted, because she's a different colour. It's not like she can, pretend to be my daughter at all. Not that she'd want to. I'd always wanted to be able to talk about it. So, and the other ones, the teenagers I've got, one came to me when she was 15, and the ones in between that time, they haven't, because I'm still trying to educate them when they do come, and they're here for a year or whatever. So my being gay isn't the primary thing. It's about them feeling, their primary thing is feeling safe. And so the ones I've had long term, because I went on to do more fostering with teenagers, which was not my thought at all. I'd never thought of doing that, but it worked better for my younger daughter, because when she was 2, I started to go back to fostering, and it was not really fit. She was very demanding in those days, still very anxious, and the children that I got quite often were similar. So it was very it just didn't work. And I'd always said, if I adopted, I would put her first. So I went on to, I went for older children, and actually I found it as rewarding, very, very different. And I've had to be very, I've had to bend quite a lot, because you can't parent them in a traditional way in any shape or form. They're coming to you at 15. Have had a whole lifetime of crap thrown at them. They're not going to bend to specific rules or do things in a specific way. But I feel I don't think they have. And the oldest one, who's going to be 21 this year actually now, so she came to me at 15, she's going to be 21. She's just really vocal. She's gung ho. She's out there, and she'll speak first and talk about and is happy to. She's very forthright. The other one, I'm pretty sure she hasn't even mentioned it because it's not important to her. She's very much more insular. I'm not sure she talks about it at school. I've talked about it to any of her close friends. She doesn't have many, but if I meet up with their mum, they all know. I would say straight away. I would put it into conversation somehow.
So obviously, yeah, you having your birth children has given you the experience of all the ages, really, from birth through the toddlers, through to teenagers. So you could say maybe it's an advantage for you when you register to foster, to say maybe you'd be happy with any age because you've got experience of all those ages. But actually, if you are fostering that child that is now a teenager, has probably been through a very different life than your child from birth has been with you. So you could say, yes, I have experience with a teenage age. So yeah, that would be fine. But actually, I'm sure it's very, very different to start fostering a teenager who's had a very different life to potentially your children.
Yeah, very different.
So I think it's very.
You haven't got the base. You build up with your own children. You have a base. You have a foundation that you can build on. So when you're putting in things when they're getting to become a teenager, it's not, they will kick off, obviously, and bend, but it's not so difficult with them. But with the child, you're coming into, you know, the last one came when she was 13, you know, and she'd been let down quite a few times with different placements, been in care since 6. So, you know, why would she necessarily, you know, I say to her, I talk about being a, you know, parent in loco parentis, but because she doesn't want me to be the person telling her what to do as a parent, even though she's never really had a parent. She's only had foster parents, some who've let her down, some who haven't. And yeah, it's totally different.
It's, yeah, I can imagine it is. So I guess, you know, when you decide to start fostering, I think it's very important to sit down and think hard about what sort of age of the child you would like to go for, because I don't know, for me, I think I love that age between 2 and 5. I think it's 2 and 4, it's really cute, it's adorable, you know, they're walking, they're talking, they're really silly and funny, but at the same time you have to keep running after them. And yeah, I don't know, you feel like, oh, maybe teenagers easier because they're already walking and they can do their food, they can dress, but actually it comes with a very different sort of
it is very different. What I'd say about doing young, you know, people say, oh, you do a wonderful job being a foster carer, blah, blah, blah. But let's be honest, we do it for some need within us as well. And when they're younger, they do give, you know, even a child who's been traumatized and is very anxious, you get stuff back without even realizing it. They won't necessarily thank you for anything and they expect everything, but you can see it in their face. Whereas a teenager, it is very different. Don't expect to be loved, and you've really got to not take things personally. It's really hard, and I do that to myself every day. I say, you know, because you have good days and bad days, and when the good days come up, you go, oh yeah, I'm really doing something today. Whereas the next day, you're not feeling quite so much like you're doing something. But it is different, and it is an overall very rewarding, yes. And I don't think you should just pigeonhole yourself into one age group, because, yeah, obviously you have a natural affinity, particularly to something. So you can say with fostering, it all depends. It's very different, fostering and adoption, because you are going to have to be able to pass, you know, let that child move on to the next stage. So that's really hard, really hard.
Yeah, how do you not get attached to that child, you know, that you're potentially spending a year or 2 of your life with them, and then how do you do that? And this is why I take my hat off to all you people that foster, because that's got to be hard. But I suppose you have to go into it with that in mind.
Yeah, but it's still very hard. I mean, I was very fortunate in all the endings of the longer term children I've had. I've done a fair few respites as well. But the longer term children, they had an ongoing movement which was positive. So it was one going back to a grandma. It was one actually being reunited with the mother, and it was a positive reunite. But I do speak to a lot of friends of mine who, you know, the child goes on to something they don't, you know, 100% agree with, and are not happy with, and you have to deal with that. Because, you know, those decisions will be made. But so yes, that's a younger child, unless you're doing a long-term younger child, and you know that they're. But that's also very daunting, because you're thinking, oh my God. The thing is with fostering, just take it a day at a time.
Yeah.
So it's very hard when they give you this, you know, when you have a baby, you don't think necessarily, oh, this is long term, I'm going to be here till she's 18. Obviously you do, but it's different with a foster child or adoption. It's because you just have to do your best on that day.
Yeah, sorry, Maz, I thought you were going to ask a question. Do you have another question for Peta? Go ahead, Maz.
Yes, having brought up my own teenage daughter, who's now 30 and a mum herself, and inherited stepchildren and step-grandchildren, I find that teenage years are exceedingly difficult when, as you've just said, that they won't bend, they're not flexible. But when it's your own blood child, the bond is very different than it is with a fostered or a stepchild. And how do you deal with some of the teenage angst and the anger that they've got when they just seem to be living on a different planet to everyone else and don't take anything else into account except themselves.
Yeah. That is really hard, really hard. And sometimes you go, oh, I can't be bothered. This is ridiculous. You know, I've put in all these things to help her, and she won't see that. You know, it becomes a battle with you instead of the actual game. So she's doing GCSEs at the moment. So I've had to step back. Now, if I try and do things like I would if it were my birth child, and I probably would be a lot firmer. But the bottom line is, this child is coming at a different angle. You know, they are very, and they've had to look after themselves since days. You know, if this one came into care at 6. You know, ultimately it's her. It's just her, and so asking something of her which she's not going to take on, I don't battle any further with it. I've tried. I've pushed everything forward. I've got a tutor. Done all those things, all the possible things that can forward. Talked endlessly. We've chatted about how getting the right grades without putting too much pressure. So it is really hard, and I have to step back. Whereas with my birth children, I probably would have forced, you know. So if they didn't do the tutoring, I tried with the fostered one, taking away everything. Well, it didn't matter actually, because she'd been used to that. And the reward and gain didn't follow. So I've had to take some sort of confidence in the fact that she will, you know, come through in the end, and we will get to the next stage, like the college. And it won't be what I want her to do, but it's not about me. And I keep saying it's not about me. It is about you. I won't be there when you're trying to get to university necessarily, you know.
That's got to be that's got to be so challenging, especially now with the COVID, because it's hard having teenagers at the best of times, but in COVID it's just been so difficult for everyone. So obviously, yeah, do you see the difference over the last 12 months? You know, is it become more difficult?
Yes, I mean, I can't talk personally specifically about the eldest one. It was hard at the beginning, just trying to get her to realise that she couldn't just go out all the time with her friends and all that sort of stuff. And she is pretty connected to me in a sense. We do have these fiery moments where, you know, she yells and I'd say, don't do that, and blah, 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 and then she'll storm out. But thankfully we've come, I think she realised that she needed to, you know, protect everybody within the house. And she was very understanding about it and came round. It was hard for her because she's used to going out at any time of the night. You know, come 18, there was no way I could, you know, stop her. You know, she does disappear off and sees her friends and comes back. So now she's limiting herself, but it is difficult. The other one, I'm afraid, spends too much time at home, so I didn't have any problem with that. It doesn't want to go back to, doesn't want to go back to school, which is, you know, another little problem, is trying to get her out. But
yeah, that's understandable. So I believe, doing a little bit of research, from what I'm reading, the process of fostering and adoption is very similar. And I don't know what your experience is, but what the internet says, it's very similar. It's roughly takes about 6 months. I think the only difference that I'm reading is that you can actually foster when you reach the age 18. Whereas you can't adopt until you're 21. So yeah, obviously, because you have done too, would you say the process is similar? And how did you find the process? Was it quite easy? It's hard to, I mean, because I'm sure it's not easy, but I want to kind of highlight the fact that it's not that difficult, if you see what I mean. But what was your experience?
Well, my experience was very easy. You know, I gave them a ring, said I was interested. They sent me a letter, as I remember it. And then quite soon after that, very nice lady came in, and we had endless sort of sessions chatting about pretty much everything. And then she would then she spoke to my ex at the time. And I think she spoke to, anybody who would support me. So my best friend, 2 best friends who were there as support, and then my children. But I don't find it difficult chatting about that sort of thing. So people who might be a bit shy or find things personal difficult to talk about, I'd probably have to be shut up about it rather than I probably talk too much.
Nothing wrong with talking too much.
But no, and then it went on to the next stage, and it was brilliant. And what I did, so I just by chance, because it was near this, I was approved in May, and then because we usually go away in the summer to Denmark for a couple of weeks, a sort of traditional family thing. I couldn't take a long-term child because you very rarely, or a child, because you very rarely get a child who's got a passport and so on, and it's also too much, paperwork. So I did respite, and that was really quite a interesting way, actually, of getting a taste of it. And I've learned from respite, kids are well behaved, pretty much in a different place, because it's like a little holiday to them. You go off and do amazing things, and because it's summer holidays. So it was a different kettle of fish before I went into the, and it was never taught, because we're all short term, well, most of us are, and then some people come into the long term category. So you're never quite sure whether that child is going to, you have them for the period that they're there while court proceedings go ahead and all that sort of stuff. That's in fostering.
So what is the difference between short term and long term?
Oh, that's a real big trickiness. I think a lot of foster carers, maybe speaking out of turn, but find, I came to long term later on, 5 years in, so on, because it's very daunting to be told, are you going to take the child and it's going to be long term, because you've hardly even met the child yet. You don't know if you're going to connect. You don't know, whereas if you're doing just normal short term, because the child can go back to parents, they can be assessing other family members, and that's the big thing at the moment, isn't it, that they still trying to assess as many family members to see if the child can be kept within the family before any other support is found for what they need. But like, yes, my one I've got at the moment, bless her heart, she went with her sisters to a long term. No, short term, it was 2 years, and then they were looking for a long term. And to take 3 kids on, it's good. There's going to be a bit more trickiness of finding a couple who will take on long term. Sorry, my daughter's exciting.
That's fine. So you said short term could be 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. Don't think you're going to get a child through the door and then they'll be gone in a few months.
Okay. So you're going to get enough time with them to maybe put your stamp on them, which is good, because I feel like anyone that fosters or adopts, that they do it, with everything they have in their heart and wanting to put the stamp on the child. They, just, I don't know, like put a little bit of themselves into that child. And, I feel like everyone I've been speaking to that fosters or adopts are incredible people. And that's what we need to do. I think, especially with LGBT fosterers, there's a very, very low percentage still, but it is slowly growing. I think it's only 5 to 7%. And, we need to, this is why we're doing this, is to let people know that, yes, you can be LGBT person, you can be a single parent, and you can adopt and you can foster. And I think that's fantastic because, And
to be honest, years ago when I was having the birth children, if I had believed, and I didn't believe, that we had a friend of ours who'd managed in those days to adopt, but the child was very severely disabled, lots of problems and things like that, and she's amazing that she did that. But that was, what lesbians would be able to adopt or foster. So it wasn't really in the ballpark that we could do that.
Yeah.
But if it had been, that would have been one way I would have liked to have gone.
Really?
So anybody that's been listening to what you've been saying this morning, what kind of attributes would Surrey County Council be looking for in a potential fosterer or adoptee?
I think they're looking for a good communicator, people who, you know, are open, so not somebody too reserved, but I'm not talking about somebody all chatty and everything like that, but definitely a good communicator. Somebody who's done, who's really looked into trauma and attachment theory and has actually, because I have to say in my early days, they didn't do such a lot of that in those days, but it is so paramount in any child that comes to you, because they're going to have been moved, you know, they're going to have been, there'll be some area where they're anxious and wondering if they're going to move on again. That they haven't got what your average birth child has, which is the unassailable fact that your parents are there for you, that, you know, you can be horrid, you can do lots of stuff and be whatever, and they'll be there. So a big communicator, somebody who's just has looked into basic parenting, attachment theory and trauma, just from children being moved on.
I imagine any local authority or agency will also be looking for someone with a lot of resilience, because you have got to be quite resilient to take that kind of in
it for the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Because whether it's a short term or long term, if it's short term, you have to part with that child quite soon on, and you know you got to be strong to do that. Yeah, but from what I hear, you know, certainly at Surrey, you get amazing training as well. So that's really good to know.
And be quite a person who's looking, you know, you're not going out there, you know, anybody who came in and went, oh, I'm going to, you know, make wonderful steps and do these, that, you know, really give the child this amazing, just don't expect it. It's a work in progress. You will get it. You get such a lot of wonderful feedback and everything, but it doesn't come as naturally. It just, you know, you just have to expect, you can't always be wanting the adoration. But you only have to read blogs of different adopters and foster carers, and they'll be talking about that. You know, when you do get a breakthrough, or you do get something, it's just amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. And I would say, like anybody, especially LGBTQ, that is looking into fostering, do your research. Would you agree with me? Do your research. Make sure the agency or local authority you're going with supports fully LGBTQ issues and stuff, because most of them do. There's a long list of a lot of agencies that, you know, support LGBTQ, but I think there's still a few that don't. So, you know, do your research and make sure maybe when you do it, link you know, the agency or authority you're going through that is linked to something that, you know, like I don't know. I think it's such a big decision to make. So yeah, make sure you're what's that word? Familiarize yourself with everything. Yeah, because I think you need to.
And one of the biggest things I think I was scared about when I first, and nervous about, because you don't know what, you know, you hear the horror stories and all that sort of stuff. And when actually you get the paperwork about the child that you're taking or whatever, it's something, but it's not the child. You know, it's their background, it's how they've displayed different behaviors in different ways. But actually, when you actually meet, they are just a kid. You know, you have something to work with, and don't be swayed by, you know, things in the paperwork that might be going, oh my God, this, oh my God, that, they've done this and they've done that, because then it's not what it seems. Every child I've had through the door is quite different.
I'm guessing that each child that you have, not only are they very different, what happened in their background obviously will shape them. But when they come to somewhere that's loving and there's other children, all children have the capacity to change and deserve that chance to change. So they shouldn't be judged by what life's thrown at them in the past, because they are just children, and none of it is their fault.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely good point. Yeah, I mean, that's really important to not judge. I mean, when you think about it, when you find a new partner, if you read all their paperwork, you'd be like, actually, no, I don't want you. Like, there's too much stuff I don't like. But you open your heart and your mind and think, well, maybe I can work with that.
That's just it. Paperwork can be a real, and everything's got to be paperwork. I know. You know, why did my little one not get anywhere further in adoption? I'm glad she didn't, because we got to have her, and it's amazing. But because of the paperwork that from her past had nothing to do with her, had nothing to do with her parents or her mother or whatever, you know. So it's yeah.
How old is she?
She's 8 now. Yeah, 8.5.
8. And did you say she was from a different ethnic background?
Yes, Pakistani.
Pardon?
Pakistani.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So
That's something.
I'm trying to, grow her identity. At the moment, she not fights it, but she's very dismissive of it. And we live in a very white area, I'm in Guildford. So thankfully, more in her school than when my kids were there. So we can talk about it, and we bring it into conversations, and we can try and celebrate different, rituals and things like that. But at the moment, she just wants to be, it's really tricky, because she just this is her family. So that's what she wants. I'm sure it will come up in a few more, more questions will come up as years go on. We want to go and do more up in London and up in, where Woking. But of course, with COVID, that's all. The last 2 years, you can't do all those sort of things.
But we will get there. You will get to do all those things, and I think it's amazing, because you'll be educating yourself along the way, won't you? Like, about different background, about different traditions and stuff. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay, so before we wrap up, Maz, have you got any other question for Peta?
Not so much a question. Having done some promotional stuff for Surrey County Council on fostering and adoption, probably about 18 months ago, the subject they were covering then was adopting children from other countries, primarily asylum seeker children. And being involved in that process with Surrey County Council was a real eye-opener. And as we've already said, anybody has the potential to be an adoptive or a foster parent. And if you think you've got the time and the space and the emotional well-being to do it, and you can give something back to someone that's had a bad time, it's going to be so rewarding. So don't necessarily be put off because you're 58, like I am, or because we're lesbians, like we all are. It's those children are innocent, and they need some love and some help, and that's what I find so wonderful about the fostering and adoption program.
Yeah,
you're absolutely spot on. Like, I know I'm not going to have children now. I'm kind of a little bit too old for that, but there's nothing going to stop me to potentially foster one day, because there's so many kids out there that need help. And for me, it wouldn't be an issue to have a child that is from a different country. I think for me, it would be quite the opposite. It would be an eye-opener. I would have to push myself to educate myself, in different things. And I think one day I would love that idea, definitely. And I absolutely love talking to people like yourself, Peta, because your experience, is a real eye-opener. And
I hope we can encourage people to come forward. Whenever I'm meeting up with friends who are lesbian and gay, I'm trying to, sell it to them. Mostly they're quite young, so they're not. That's unusual, but I don't know many older ones at the moment. But they're not. I haven't been able to talk anybody into it yet. But just it's such a rewarding and a fun thing to do. All age groups, just different, just very different. Much more emotional. when they're older, there's not so much you can do. But yes, just go for it. Don't take as long as I did. I took a good 3 years before I started inquiring.
Okay, well,
as good a reaction from if it's Surrey County Council or any other councils. And if you're feeling uncomfortable about something and your gut instinct is not feeling good, then you should bring it up with the powers that be, the people above that person, because you will get personal people within the situation who make it awkward for you. And if they do, don't accept it. Move to somebody and say, I'm feeling awkward with this. I'm feeling I'm not very positive. I'm hoping you won't get that, and I never did. But
good. That's good to hear. And I can't imagine being made feel like that, because you're actually putting yourself out there to do something incredible. So why should anyone make you feel bad about anything? So let's hope your experience is the experience that most of people have. But Peta, I really want to thank you for joining us. And we here at Pride in Surrey wish you all the best. With your foster children, with your adopted one, and thank you so much for doing such an incredible work, really.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll keep in touch, and we will speak to you again, Peta. Thank you again.
Okay,
Bye.
Nice to
Bye
meet
for
you.
now.
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Oh, how wonderful is that lady, Maz?
Absolutely amazing. And those people that haven't been a mum, it really is one of the most rewarding yet hard jobs that you can ever take on.
Yeah.
And everything you put in eventually does come back. But you might not see the rewards or the fruit of your input until they're teenagers or even into their 20s. But it is the most rewarding thing going, and it once you've got a bond with the child, and nobody can take it away.
Yeah, absolutely blown away. Not only she has got 3 birth children, she's got adopted child, and she's fosters. I think it's amazing. Absolutely love that.
Absolutely in awe of her that somebody would have their own children and then take on other children that are going to have problems.
Yeah. Fantastic. Matt, thank you so much for joining me in talking to Peta. It was fabulous. Hopefully we'll be speaking soon.
Hopefully, yes. Thank you very much, Jana, for letting me come on and do this. It's been good. So looking forward to the next one.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Matt. Take care for now.
Thank you, Jana.